Hello everybody again, and welcome to the Color Gemstone Academy. I am your instructor, Paul Deasy, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. So if you've not done so as of yet, please hit that subscribe button. I know that sounds scary, subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny, it's completely free. It just helps me to do these lessons for you. And I want to continue to grow this to be the largest free weekly gem classes on YouTube. And with your help, I think I can get there. Well, this will be episode 8 of the question and answer series. Now, why do I have a question and answer series besides my usual lessons? Well, a lot of you write in some really good questions, and I figure that some of you may be too shy to ask a question, so I put this series together so that you could hear what other people are asking and hear what the answers are to those questions. So without further ado, let us begin. Andrea H. asks, by the way, I'm reading these off of paper so you know. Andrea H. asks from episode 29, which was on aquamarine. She says, so what is milky aquamarine? Well, Andrea, that is an excellent question. And you may or may not know that most crystal gemstones come in various forms of clarity. In fact, in an earlier lesson, boy, I can't talk today. In an earlier lesson, I talked about how there are 3 different stages of clarity of a gemstone. You have your transparent, you have your translucent, and you have opaque gemstones. And that can happen in a lot of different gemstones. The ideal gemstone that you get would be, I'll put a picture of a pegmatite of aquamarine on your screen, and you're going to see just see-through, very perfect color aquamarine. Unfortunately, that's a very small percentage of all, and it can happen in others, in amethyst and citrine and every other gemstone. But it's a very small percentage. It is that perfectly transparent. And you can tell that by, if you put it over newsprint, you'll be able to read it. Then you get something that is called translucent. I'm going to show you another pegmatite of aquamarine that has a lot of visible inclusions in that. And so it's usually not going to be transparent when it comes out like that. It's going to be a little bit more translucent. That means some light passes through, but you really can't see what's happening behind it, almost like a shower curtain. Well, that's what happens with milky aquamarine. So you can get in all different gemstones, whether it's amethyst, whether it's citrine, aquamarine, you get these translucent pieces that are quite lovely. They're really, really pretty. They don't command the same high price that you would for a perfect blue aquamarine from Brazil, but you can still have a lot of fun, do a lot of things with an opaque or a translucent version, and that's what the milky aquamarine is. I hope, Andrea, that answers your question. Okay, now question 2 in this lesson comes from 2761 Pastor, and he got this comment in episode 51, which was Spessartine Garnet. And he says, thank you, Paul. You are a great teacher. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I have a passion for gemstones. I've been able to travel all over the world doing so, and I love to share that knowledge with you when I can. So if it's making your day, that's all I need to know. Thank you so much for that comment. All right, our next question comes from Sarma L. He has been known to ask a question or two in the past. And this comes from the Q&A episode 5 with Tom Elliott, part 2. He says, interesting intel on remote gem locations. On the next Q&A, kindly explain the difference between spinels and garnets. If both gems have the same multiple color options and don't require treatments. That is a fantastic question from Sarma. In fact, you're a great student, and you're going to make an even better gemologist sometime. It's a great question because there's an old saying in the United States that says, well, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, then it must be a duck. Well, that's not true with the garnet and the spinel. They are very, very similar in most respects. So what's the difference? Let's go through it. If we first take a look at the hardness, the Mohs scale of hardness, the ability for one gem to scratch another gem. You're going to see that they're very similar. In fact, the spinel is an 8 in hardness, And the garnet, depending on the species, is going to be anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5. So yes, the Spinel is harder, but they're really pretty close. So that might say, well, that's not good enough. Okay, get that. So what about the toughness scale? You know, the ability to withstand cracking and chipping. Well, if you take a look at your Spinel, it's going to be rated good on the toughness scale. If you take a look at the garnet, it's going to be fair to good. So again, I give a nod a little bit to the Spinel being a little bit more durable in the toughness than would be the garnet. Okay, so how about refractive index? Now, I love the refractive index. That talks about the sparkle of the gemstone. Diamonds being a 2.42. You get to your zircon, maybe 1.98. One of the best of the colored gemstones. So how do these guys stack up against one another? Spinel, 1.71 to 1.73. Garnet, again, depending upon the specific species, as we've been doing with all of our garnet lessons, 1.76 to 1.87. Pretty close, a little bit more sparkle potential on the garnet, but they're still really just too close to explain why they're not the same gemstone. Okay, how about the specific gravity? You know, the heft of the gemstone? That's how you can tell how dense that gemstone is. Well, if you take a look at the Spinel, it's going to be a range of 3.62 to 3.57, excuse me, 3.57 to 3.63. And the garnet, 3.62 to 3.87. So some species of garnet have a higher specific gravity than the Spinel, but again, too close to call. All right, I know what you're thinking. Sorry, I've confused you even more than you started the question. Well, let me tell you what it really comes down to. It really comes down to the chemical composition of the gemstone. It has to have certain things in order for it to be a garnet, and it has to have other things in order for it to be a Spinel. For example, the chemical composition of Spinel is magnesium aluminum oxide. Truthfully, it puts it probably closer to a ruby than it would garnet, because aluminum oxide is what you have in sapphires and rubies. What about the garnets? Well, again, depending upon the species, garnets have a lot of different chemical compositions. But what they have in common, and if you look on your screen right now, you will see that all of them they're a silicate mineral. So all of them, and you're going to see in that box on your screen, it'll say SiO4. All of the garnets, whether they're from the aluminum group or whether from the calcium group, they all have that SiO4. So it's a silicate mineral. Spinel does not have that. So that's really going to be the only way that you're going to tell between the two. However, there's one more interesting fact, and it's not true of all garnets, but many garnets will have an iron content in them. In fact, that's what lends a lot of that orange or red color to a garnet. And if you have a super powerful electromagnetic magnet, it will attract, again, this is a powerful magnet, but if it has traces of iron in it, it's going to attract the garnet to that magnet. It will not do the same with the Spinel. So that's how you tell the difference between the very similar Spinel and garnet. Okay, our next question, I don't know what it is, question number 4, I think. Jeff A says, from episode 50, Pyrope Garnet. I love Pyrope Garnet. It's one of my favorites. I love garnets. Well, Jeff, you and I are completely alike. It's one of my favorite gemstones. I think it's one of the most underrated gemstones on planet Earth. And don't forget, I have 3 more lessons upcoming on the calcium members of the garnet family. So we're just getting started. Thanks for your question. Okay, our next comment comes in from Comfy Cozy, and that was after watching episode 51, the Spessartite Garnet. It says, I used to watch you on Shop HQ and had to do some investigating as to what happened, so I was glad to find you, and yes, I have subscribed. Well, Comfy Cozy, thank you so much for watching me over the years and subscribing. For those of you that don't know, she's referring to Shop HQ, I guess it still is a shopping channel up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My career started as a host in the shopping channel business with the Home Shopping Network, and then I ended up at QVC, and then eventually had my own brand on Shop HQ. And now I'm educating all of you on gems and where to find them. So I hope that answers your question or your comment. Thanks so much for weighing in on that. Okay, we're going to make this the last question on this episode, and this one comes in from Sydney, Australia. Goes by the name of Sydney, Australia, from episode 21, which was Turquoise 101. And he says, so the big question is, after all this compression and mixing, talking about stabilization, does the stone still hold its astrological values and benefits, or is it becoming just a fine piece of jewelry? Okay, so first of all, I have to acknowledge that I love your name, Sydney, Australia. I guess I can now claim that the entire city of Sydney, Australia follows me on YouTube, so thank you for that. It's a great question. I had a similar question of a similar nature about turquoise and its metaphysical properties a little bit earlier. And I want to say start off the same way that I answered that question, which is I do not by any means consider myself an expert in the metaphysical properties of gemstones. I know about gemstones. I've been to mines all over the world. I'm somewhat of an expert. I've authored a couple of books, but I never really got into the the metaphysical parts of it. There are other people that you can talk to, but I'll give you my opinion, okay? With my disclaimer that I'm not an expert. Every year when I went to the Tucson Gem Show, I used to visit a booth called David Geiger Minerals, and he was the expert on metaphysical. And I was amazed at the things that I learned from him just visiting the booth, and that there's a certain energy and a vibration rate of gemstones, and they've been around for billions of years, and they certainly have an undeniable energy and an undeniable power. But your question, I assume, was about certain turquoise, and one of the certain turquoise that I talked about was compressed stabilized turquoise. Compressed stabilized turquoise is one form of stabilization, and that's really not, I would guess that that doesn't have anywhere near the same properties of the original stone, because they're taking and they're breaking down turquoise into its dust components, and then they compress it together and put a resin in there to hold it all together. I would say that that would be nothing resembling the original stone. However, most other turquoise, including Sleeping Beauty, Kingman, some others, where they stabilize the gemstone, all it's doing is filling the pores that are in the stone so that it doesn't absorb oils from your skin. So my opinion on that, for whatever it's worth, is that you're not fundamentally changing the chemical optical properties of that gemstone. So I would guess that it does not have effect, but that is just my opinion. As I said, I'm no expert in that. On the other hand, if you want to reach David Geiger, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years because of all the COVID and everything else, I will give you the last link that I had, and he would be your source for all things about the metaphysical properties of any gemstone, not just turquoise. And I'll put that on the screen so you have that at your beck and call. Well, that's going to do it for this question and answer. This was episode 8, our series of questions and answers on gemstones that you have for me. Remember, if you are new to the channel or if you have not yet done so, please hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. As of this taping, I'm over 1,200 subscribers, and I want to thank each and every one of you for doing that. I really, really do appreciate it. I'll see you next time on the question and answer series. That happens on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern time in the US. And then my new lessons are always Saturday at 10 a.m. And I'm going to resume our lessons on garnet. See you next week, everybody. Thanks for watching.